Hi, everyone. No. Now? Can you hear me now? Wow, I have to hold this pretty close. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you all. My name is Fran Price. I'm the forest practice leader at WWF International. And we are thrilled to have you all join us here today, both in person and virtually. Hopefully you've gotten a little bite to eat, which can be hard to come by here. So we wanted to have a little bit of a casual and comfortable session with you all, and hopefully one where you can get engaged in the conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about the role of the private sector in nature-based solutions and our climate challenge. So while we've been talking a lot about government ambitions and commitments, oh, I think that's better, isn't it? Yeah, oh, good. Okay. While we've been talking a lot at this COP and past COPs around government ambitions, we wanted to focus on the critical role that the private sector has to play in dealing with the climate crisis. Forests represent around a third of the climate solution if we protect and manage and restore them. So they are such an important part of the overall picture and what we need to do together. Last year, WWF launched a program called Forest Forward, and this is our forest engagement platform. And this is a way for companies to engage in forest solutions. And we are now working with 20 companies from concession holders in the Congo Basin to retailers and consumer brands to tech companies. So there's a wide variety of companies that are engaged. And it's not being part of the forest sector, it's really wanting to lead on forests. And so we have a fabulous panel here today. We have two of our leading forest companies, HP and IKEA. And I think this may be the first time that WWF at least has them together on a panel. And these are two of our longest standing forest partners, and I'm absolutely thrilled that they're joining us today. We also have two of our WWF colleagues who are working in two of the most critical forest regions on Earth. So I'm going to go through all of our panelists in just a second. But I wanted to just say we're really focused on high quality nature-based solutions. And our Forest Forward program has three pillars. One is responsible forest management. And this is something that WWF has been working with companies on for decades, literally. And responsible sourcing is the second pillar. And that's also something that we have a long record on. The third is nature-based solutions and investments in landscapes. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to be focusing in on some of the work both that these companies are doing more generally, they'll cover, but also some of the work that we're doing with them and other companies in the Atlantic Forest region of Brazil and the Congo Basin region. So with that, I'm going to have to put on my readers for a second here. So we have Ulf Johansson is head of global wood supply and forestry at Inner IKEA Group. IKEA is one of the world's largest furniture retailers and WWF's longest running forest partner. We've been working together for more than 20 years now. Previously under WWF's Global Forest and Trade Network program, and now under Forest Forward. IKEA, we've been working together on responsible sourcing and forest-related investments in more than 19 countries in Europe, Asia, and Southeast Asia, ranging from supporting smallholders in Vietnam and indigenous communities in Indonesia to advancing Forest Stewardship Council certification for forests across Europe and Asia. And is my sound okay, or am I? Yeah, it's okay. Okay. We also have with us James McCall, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer at HP. HP and WWF have partnered now for more than a decade on HP's responsible sourcing related to printing, paper, and packaging. And HP has supported critically important forest restoration efforts in Brazil's Atlantic forest and in China. Last year, HP became our largest corporate partner in the US with an $80 million partnership expansion to support the protection, improved management, and restoration of nearly 400,000 hectares of forests by 2030. Earlier this week, we announced more details about landscape efforts with HP in Peru's Amazon, the fire-damaged areas of Eastern Australia, and expanded work in Brazil. So we're thrilled to have both Ulf and James with us. And then I'm also going to introduce Belmond and Terahim now, two of my WWF colleagues, one of whom is sitting next to me. And they are working on the ground. So Terahim Miranda Cardoso Quadros is a conservation analyst from WWF Brazil, who focuses on restoration in Brazil's Atlantic forest region, and Belmont, who is our Central Africa Forest Program Coordinator and based in WWF Cameroon and focused on working with companies, local communities, and governments on forests across the Congo Basin. So, this is our plan for the session. I'm going to pose a few questions for the panel, and that they'll respond to and discuss together. And then we'll take some questions from the audience. So hopefully you can be thinking about some good questions for our panelists. So let's get started. And I'm going to start with a question to both Ulf and James. So I'd love Ulf and James, if you're with us, hopefully. Absolutely. Hopefully they'll come up here on screen. We would love to understand a little bit more about your company's perspectives on forests and why this work is a priority for you. So they're coming. Okay. We'll just give it a second here. All right. Very good. Oh, wonderful to see you all here. Welcome. Hello. So, Ulf, I think we're starting with you with that question about your forest work and why it is a priority for IKEA. Please.
Thank you very much, Fran. And first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. Of course, it would be a pleasure to be with you in Sharm el-Sheikh, but I hope this can work as well.
Ulf, one second, hold that thought. We are having an issue with the sound. Okay. It's okay. Sorry. Sometimes the Zoom is a bit of a challenge here. We're working on it.
No worries. We are
Yeah?
ready.
Okay, let's try again. Over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Fran. And thanks for inviting me. Of course, it would be even nicer to be with you in Egypt, but I hope this can work as well. As you said, my name is Ulf Johansson, working for IKEA. And when it comes to wood, wood is our main material in IKEA. It's the material we started with some 79 years ago. And it is a big part of our design heritage. And provided that the wood comes from responsibly managed forest, it is a fantastic material. It's a material that is renewable, it's recyclable, it's durable, and of course it also allows us to make beautiful products. At IKEA, we are a big user of wood. And with that comes, of course, a big responsibility. And I will come back to that, but it also comes with a huge opportunity to use our global reach and our volumes to drive responsible forest management at the scale in the world. Looking at our forest positive agenda for 2030, we will focus on three main areas. The first one is to continue the work to make responsible forest management the norm in the world. And we will do that by going beyond our own material needs with special attention in the coming years on biodiversity. We know that we are losing biodiversity at an alarming rate in the world. And also with a big focus on people. There are 1.6 billion people in the world, one way or the other, depending on forest. And they also have a right to create a fair and equal livelihood for them and their families. We will also continue working with the most credible and transparent third-party forest certification systems in the world. And at present, 99.9% of the wood that we are using in IKEA is either FSC certified or recycled. Second focus areas is to stop deforestation and reforest degraded landscapes. The world must stop deforestation. We know that this is one of the biggest contributors to loss of biodiversity and CO2 emissions. And even if IKEA's wood use is deforestation-free, we want to go beyond and drive a change. And one way to do that is what we announced already in COP25 in Madrid, where we allocated 100 million euro budget to drive forest restoration project with a purpose to absorb CO2 in a holistic way. The project we will do within this budget will develop models on how responsible land use can mitigate climate change. We know that there is a lot of money out there for planting trees, but we still lack in society a lot of competence on how to do it in a sustainable and self-sustained way. We are doing this together with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, for example, and the first project is actually already launched in Vietnam, and there are more to come. This is a part of our climate positive commitment in IKEA. The third area we want to focus on is what we call smarter use of wood. And here we will maximize the use of recycled wood in IKEA. And in 2030, at least 1/3 of all the wood we are using will be recycled. We will also step up investments in innovation for new wood-based applications to help us phase out virgin fossil materials. And finally, also develop new technological solutions for what we call more from less, to be even more mindful with the material, to do more from every cubic meter of wood. And by doing this, we will help to store carbon in products and materials for a long, long time, and also reduce the pressure on the world's forests. Coming back to going beyond, partnering with others, like the example with WWF, is a great initiative. We have, as you said, been working for 20 years together with a wide range of projects, and I am really impressed meeting the colleagues in WWF on the ground out in the world, sitting in the forest, calculating with small forest holders in Vietnam, for example, how to improve forest management, create more value on site on the forest products. We have learned a lot from the partnership with WWF, from your competence and also from your holistic view on sustainability. But we also do it because we have a challenging and respectful distance to each other, respecting each other's integrity. And finally, I think a very good advantage is what comes from the attention from our employees and our customers. When we see both customers and employees looking for companies that has a bigger purpose. So all in all, I hope these 20 years is just the beginning of the partnership we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ulf. Over to you, James, with the same question, please.
Well, first and foremost, hello to everyone there in Egypt. Similar to Ulf, I'm deeply disappointed that I'm not going to be able to be there in person, but would love to welcome you into my home, right? And here at HP, we've embraced the hybrid world. We think that, you know, it's important that we bring the best innovators, the best ideas, no matter where they're coming from, which region forward. And so I think as many challenges as we face in hybrid, there's also a lot of opportunities in hybrid. And so thank you for bearing with us today and for trying something new as we all look at different ways we can think about our own footprint. So your first question you may be asking is, why is HP here talking about forestry? You're a tech company, right? What does a tech company care about the forest? And, you know, for us, HP is the world's largest printer company, right? So as a printing company, our business is inextricably linked to forest, right? Like it is a key part of everything that we do. And so, you know, our first commitment, similar to IKEA's, is we wanted to be deforestation free, right? And so we wanted to set a goal of zero deforestation across our HP branded paper. And then we did that back in 2016 and we achieved it. And we went forward and said, we want to move beyond just the paper we're selling and sourcing all the way to the packaging. And so we completed our packaging work in 2020. And so for the last several years, HP has already been able to say confidently that across our supply chain, we are at zero deforestation. But to me, that's kind of, you know, the bare minimum. I think that's something that every company should be doing. I think that's the kind of expectation of our fair share as major companies is we should be removing deforestation from our supply chain. For us, we didn't want to stop there. We really wanted to go beyond to look for ways that we could be forest positive, that we could start to be forest forward, to start to give back more to the forest than we take. And so we leaned in with WWF and we said, how do we think about this? And the goal that we set is we want to counteract deforestation for every single piece of paper that goes through a printer, whether it's our HP paper or if you're buying someone else's paper. Between now and 2030, we want to compensate for every page printed through an HP printer. And we're doing this through amazing works in protection, restoration, and other things in areas like Brazil, Peru, Australia. We just launched new partnerships today that are building on what we already had before. You know, Fran mentioned the $80 million contribution. To me, numbers aren't that impactful. It's really more of the size. In order of magnitude, that's about 400,000 hectares. And to kind of put it in scale, that's equivalent to 5 times the size of New York City, right? So that's the area that we're hoping to be able to protect. That's what we're hoping to be able to come along and to make sure that we're making a difference. And the way we're able to do that is because our customers care, right? People say when I buy a printer, whether it's my children's schoolwork, whether it's my grandmother's photos, whether it's my big report that I have for work or I'm sharing with the board, some people just see and think better when they can touch their ideas, and we want to meet them where they're at. We want them to feel good about what they're printing, and I want them to be able to innovate faster because we're working on planet-sized problems and we need as much innovation as we can get. And so by committing to making sure that every page printed is printed positively and is having a positive impact on the world around us, I think it enables customers to make those sustainable choices. And that brings us back to WWF is like, you know, for us, it's all about partnerships, right? No one company, no one organization or region of the world can do this alone. Sustainability is a team sport. And so we like to be on Team WWF because I know they're doing meaningful work in communities, right? People like Taru, who's in Brazil, driving this work on the ground there with hand-in-hand partners in these communities. They ground their work in science. We're setting robust metrics. And similar to what Ulf shared from IKEA, we push each other to go better, to go further, and to expand together. And so thank you for letting us join today, and excited to be here, Fran. So.
Thank you so much, James and Ulf. And I have to say, you know, we need leadership of the kind that HP and IKEA are showing in so many sectors. This kind of leadership needs to become infectious, and we need it quickly. And unfortunately, not all companies have this same spirit of leadership and vision. And so we are working hard with companies that are leading the way, like the two we have here, but also trying to spur more ambition and more action on their parts, companies, on the parts of those companies. So thank you so much to both of you. I also want to say that we are hearing you, but the closer you can get to your microphone, the better. So just wanted to mention that as well. And now a question for Belmond and Taru, and that is, if you could tell us a little bit about your forest work and the role that you see companies playing in that work now and going forward. It would be great to hear from both of you. And Taru, we'll start with you.
Thanks for the invitation, Fran. It's a pleasure to be here representing the work that we do here in Brazil. I also want to acknowledge that Alexandre Prado is there with you guys representing WWF Brazil. So let's just get started and talk about the Atlantic Forest. It is a tropical rainforest in South America and is home to an incredible biodiversity with animals like the jaguar. And it also has an importance for essential ecosystem service like water provision, not only to Brazil, but also to Argentina and Paraguay. And even with this ecological importance, not only for South America, but for the world, it is endangered. We only have 12% of the original forest cover remaining, and it was deforested and fragmented. It means that we don't only need to protect, to conserve what remains, but we need to restore. There's a huge opportunity for restoration in the Atlantic forest. So in this biome, WWF Brazil try to bring global ambitions to the ground, to results in the fields. And we try to connect international ambitions, global ambitions and targets like climate targets to national, to regional, and to local impacts and targets. So we do this by leveraging corporate funds by companies like HP, like James just mentioned, with an open dialogue and funds that have long-term commitments that help us to accelerate the restoration actions, to elevate nature-based solutions, to look beyond carbon, to bring co-benefits to water provision, benefits for biodiversity, and also benefits for social, for people. It catalyzes the work in the country. So the Atlantic Forest has a major connection with the Brazilian society. We are majorly talking about private lands. And it means that the rural producers, the landowners, are the protagonists of the restoration work. And that we need to engage them, that we need to work with local institutions and with local holders to restore their lands. And this is how we do, connecting everything from the local to the global ambitions. And we also work with governance, with multi-stakeholder platforms, to articulate people together on higher levels on critical issues for conservation and for restoration. And two great examples of multi-stakeholder platforms are the Atlantic Forest Restoration Pact and the Tri-National Alliance for the Atlantic Forest Restoration. And we work on forest landscape restoration approach, and we try to strengthen institutional capacities of local institutions that implement restoration, capacitating them in the gaps, and always looking ahead, thinking about the long-term persistence of them in the landscape and of the actions that we are doing. So it means that it gives the spaces and opportunities for local voices, that we are bringing diversity and equity, especially for us women. We have 11 local partners in the Atlantic Forest, and 7 of them are women-led or with women co-leading the work, which is super great. And finally, to wrap up, platforms like Forest Forward offers opportunity to bring more companies to look to supply chain connections, to bring co-investments, and to look to a common goal in the landscape to conserve and protect the forests. So collaborating with HP and other Forest Forward partners, helping strengthening restoration actions, bringing mobilization of more funds and partnerships to upscale forest landscape restoration in Brazil is the way that we do. And thanks for all the support. Obrigada.
Thank you, Tara. That's great. Now we'll turn to you, Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Fran, and good evening, everyone. And it's good to see you here all. And to talk about the Congo Basin, the experience of WWF working to strengthen the conservation of the rich biodiversity of Congo Basin. When we talk about Congo Basin, we are referring to 200,000 hectares of tropical rainforest, which is home of about 60 million people which life rely on these resources. It's home of about 10,000 species of plant, huge biodiversity, animal and plant, with endemic species, with emblematic wildlife species such as gorillas, great apes in general, elephants, with a potential of absorbing about 1.5 billion tons of carbon a year, which represents about 4% of the global emission. This is just to say that the Congo Basin is critical in the combat against climate change, but it also contributes to our national economies and to the livelihoods of people who depend on them. But these forests are under threats of different kinds. And for the last 2 or 3 decades, WWF has been actively working to make sure that this rich biodiversity is maintained and well managed. It's important to note that among these 20,000 million hectares, 30% around are protected areas. You can also find some forest concessions, and the forest program of WWF in the Congo Basin has been focusing on strengthening and supporting sustainable forest management, working with concessional holders, private companies, working with local communities, collaborating with government, with civil societies. To give you an idea, WWF has pioneered FSC certification in the Congo Basin, and to date, we have about 4 million hectares of FSC certified forests in the Congo Basin, making it the most important natural forest FSC certified. It is important to note that this work is possible because we are working with companies that are showing leadership in maintaining the forest biodiversity. Also because this is possible because of the collaboration between companies, between local communities, and various stakeholders. And we can tell you that to date, there are proven evidence of the positive impact of this work, of FSC in particular, on local communities, social impact, but also on environmental impact. There's a study that will be published very soon, hopefully by the end of the year, that demonstrates the contribution to FSC to biodiversity conservation, especially the positive impact on big mammals. I think this is an evidence that the work that WWF is supporting in the region is really yielding good results. This work go along with the support of local communities. We have in Cameroon, for instance, more than 100 communities that are managing broadly 5,000 hectares each. In DRC also, we have community forests. We've also pioneered community forestry in Gabon. This is just to say that the right of the people, the interest of the people is at the heart of the work of WWF in the region. Very few words on the Forest Forward. When we launched the Forest Forward, the objective was to work with a number of companies on specific impact. And today, there are 5 companies who are participating in our Forest Forward program. This is about 3 million hectares of forest. And what we focus on is, first of all, working on ecosystem services, especially on biodiversity ecosystem service and carbon ecosystem service. And I think there are companies there, communities there that are showing leadership in working to make sure that their contribution to the global fight against climate change, it's well recognized. The second aspect of our work, that is in the work plan that we designed with this company. The second aspect is strengthening their relationships with local communities and indigenous peoples. It's very important in an area, and these areas are very remote, where the action of the government are quite limited, and the companies here played an important role in providing social services to the local communities. But beyond that, the issue of the rights of local communities and indigenous people are very important in this partnership between companies, NGOs, and local communities and indigenous people. And the third pillar of our work with the company is restoration. We are in the rainforest. When we talk about restoration, for many people, they might not understand. But it's important to note that degradation is one of the negative aspects of industrial logging. And we support these companies that want to restore the degraded land, making sure that there's no fragmentation between the logging concessions and the neighboring protected area, building corridors between logging concessions and neighboring protected areas. This is broadly, Fran, what we are doing in WWF in the Congo Basin with other colleagues from the region. Thank you.
Ramon, thank you so much. Thank you all. So I'm going to ask all of you a question about what you need for your forest efforts and work to succeed. So, and what we need to be successful from your perspective. So I think we'll start in the same order. So we'll go to you, Ulf. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fran. And of course, it's the right question to ask. I can give some thoughts from IKEA, but I hope what I say will be valid for all of us and also something where we can all contribute. If I first of all look towards governments.
Ulf, wait, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but could you get even a little bit closer? Sorry.
A little bit
Thank
closer. Yeah. First of all, I would look towards governments and ask for support when it comes to creating infrastructure and set incentives for recycling. The good thing is that we have the technology to do recycling already. We have factories that is running on 100% recycled wood in some parts of the world, but we have many other countries where there is no still possibility for society to recycle. So that's the one thing. Second is a call upon the whole forestry sector to step up of the trenches, be a little bit less self-congratulatory and more curious to find ways to work together for science-based solutions on responsible forest management. And then the third one, which is maybe the most important enabler of all, is transparency. the more you work with transparency, the more inspired you get by the power of it. And here I believe that the whole forest industry must step up and simply share the wood they are using. Where does it come from, and how is the forest managed? This is a responsibility for everybody, and it is fundamental for a sustainable development. And since this now is an action COP and we should show actions, right? I can promise you that we will try to do our part in IKEA, and in the coming weeks, you will see another step from us in how we want to increase our transparency in our supply chains. So those were the three things from my side.
Fabulous, Ulf. Thank you so much. Over to you, James.
I said, thank you, Fran, and I'll speak up, but hopefully I'm streaming on my favorite Hypercast solo mic here. So that's one of the perks of being at HP. So hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. If not, I'll give my friends in tech a hard time. But, if I think about and building off what Ulf shared, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, Taru mentioned it, which is it starts in communities, right? These communities have lived and worked and protected these forests since before any of us ever began, right? Many of them for decade upon decade and generation after generation. And so I think we have to find opportunities and ways that we come in and we take the work that the local communities are doing and we help amplify that. And we help them go further and we give them the resources and the things that they need to do that. But where I get excited and what I think one of the most critical roles that WWF plays, that the Forest Forward Network plays, and that we can think about as a broader group of industry and cross collaborators is how do we bring science and data into that? Because it's not just about planting trees. It's not just about protecting areas. It's about doing it in the right way that's going to sustain for the long term, that's going to really be able to support change in these communities and support them to be able to act differently, whether that's helping them close the digital divide to bring them new opportunities for jobs, for healthcare, for education. How do we unlock the innovation, right? I mean, there's an amazing amount of innovation in these communities. When I go out and work with them in the forest, Taru mentioned she's got 11 groups that she's working with in Brazil, 7 of which are women-owned businesses that are wanting to make a meaningful difference in their communities. They're wanting to give back. So that's what gives me hope. That's what inspires me that we're going to be able to make a change and to be able to make a difference is listening to their stories and listening to their passion. And so the challenge that I would leave this team with and would leave the audience with is we cannot let perfection be the enemy of progress. At HP, we've committed that we would much rather be doing something now than to not be doing anything and to sit back and say, we need this to be perfect. And so as much as I think it's critical that we have science-based targets for nature and that we develop the right science and the right methodologies around it, my biggest push would be to act, right? Find the right partners, find the right communities, engage your customers in this journey with you. Every company is a print company. Every company has packaging. Every company has advertising. Every company has receipts or memos or internal pages. Every company is a print company. So every company should be a forest company. And so I would encourage all of you to act, to think about your own forest footprint, to think about your own paper footprint, and what can you do to be a difference in the world around you.
Thank you, James. Wonderful. Tara, we're going to go over to the practitioners now. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so inspired by Wolf and James here, I just like to bring the sense of urgency of the calling out for action. Landscapes and communities need companies and governments to scale up actions to work together. We need long-term commitments, as I said, and we need companies like IKEA and HP leading by example and creating the movement that will engage several or other parties in the common goal for the forests. So we need the support in the biome level, and we need people and companies driving responsible consumption and related also to the supply chain of these companies. So that is the major thing that I think that we need to make everything happen.
Thank you, Taru. Loud and clear. Yeah. Belmont, over to you.
I think I wouldn't say anything different. It's very important today to strengthen the collaboration between all the stakeholders involved in the landscape approach, making sure that the companies are part of the process, the communities, the government, local and national governments are part of the process in order really to upscale the issue. Just to illustrate, I remember there are communities who lives on non-timber forest products, and I remember WWF facilitating discussion with these companies that put in their disposal their cars to take them in the forest, very remote places, and help them carrying out their product and selling them in a good price. I think these are the kind of example that needs to be strengthened, just demonstrating that collaboration between partners are key to upscale the work we are doing on the ground.
Yes. Thank you, Belmont. Okay, so I think we're going to open it up to our audience to see if we have any questions from you. And we've got Huma on the microphone. So please raise your hand if anyone has a question. Great.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry. I wondered if you could say a little bit more about the connectivity point you made around connecting up forest timber areas and then protected areas, and any experience you have on actually doing that on the ground and having those negotiations around building that. That would be really interesting. Thank you.
Great. All right, Belmont.
Yes, thank you for the question. As I said, most of the logging companies are located close to the protected areas. And most of our partners are FSC certified. And you remember there was this motion of protection of intact forest landscape in one of the provision of the FSC. What we did with some companies was to design within their management plan the location of the intact forest landscape, the core zone that should be entirely protected, to connect them with the neighboring protected area. Most of these logging concessions are surrounded by protected area, and we made sure that in the border between the concessions and protect area, there's no fragmentation, there's no logging road built to make sure that the corridor is maintained.
Great question.
Fran,
yes.
can I add something in here?
Absolutely, Taru.
Yeah, because this is really similar to the work here in Brazil. So the Atlantic forest is fragmented and dispersed around the landscape, and creating biodiversity corridors or ecological corridors is something that we also work on in here. And we use science-based interventions and planning, like James mentioned, but we also need to account to the on-the-ground context. So when we plan at the higher level, at the geospatial level, is one thing, but we need to hear the voices from the field and to plan together with them to see the feasibility of the corridor, where would be the best areas to connect and everything. So this is also an important part. As always, we need to hear the social perspective as well, together with the science interventions.
Agree.
Terrific. Thanks, Taru, for that addition. We have another question here.
Yes, hello. My name is Paul. I'm coming from Lebanon. I think it was the first country in the world where the forests were cut in history for all the region, for the cedar wood and all its forest. My question is that what the WWF is doing in Congo is excellent, but in my country, in the Middle East, where we will be affected, maybe the Middle East will be the most region affected by the climate change in the coming years. We don't see help for the civil society there to protect and save what is left for its cedar and other forests in the country. Since 2 days, we had a big problem. The last forest near the capital, Beirut, the last one, it's only a small forest of 10 hectares. Some works, because it is a private property. So the owners started work there, and and with the help of many people here in the COP, for example, the chief of the tribes of the Pygmy in Congo and other persons who sent messages through social media, we were able last night to stop the works there and waiting for the EIA and other things to maybe save this forest. So I'm trying to ask for help from WWF. Maybe we can save together this small forest. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, some of the conditions under which we work are incredibly challenging in many parts of the world. And I hope we can help save that forest and many others as well. It's we're at a turning point here, and we've got to come together to do everything we can to keep the forests we have and to restore forests to get back, you know, much of the nature that we've lost. Yeah. Thank you. So any more questions? Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. It's really commendable job, the work WWF is doing to protect the forest, and at the same time supporting the communities for their livelihoods. And I really appreciate that example, because one of the challenges of communities is to add value to those non-timber forest products, to be able to sustain their livelihoods, and also to improve in what they are doing. But I'm seeing such actions like one-time action, because after WWF, after the project, how will this community continue to sustain their livelihood? Maybe they will be able to go back in the forest. So what is being put in place to ensure sustainability of these activities? What is being put in place to ensure that these communities are now on their own? They have alternative and sustainable livelihood, and we will also contribute in conserving this forest. Thank you.
Belmont, do you want to take that?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very important question, and we try to build from one example. We try to upscale what we are doing, and what you are describing, it's very correct. But WWF is trying to play the role of convener, putting all the actors together. It's very challenging because they don't all understand the issue the same way. We work in landscapes where you have logging companies, you have governments, you have mining companies, and the ideal will be for all these actors to come together and put their effort together to build something. It's so far very challenging, but I think here that the government also has a role to play, because at the end of the day, the government is responsible for the well-being of the people, and it's their role to make sure that these companies respect not only the regulation, but also all the requirements of the regulation and their social responsibilities. As WWF, what we've been doing for years is trying to put all these actors together and explain why is it important for them to collaborate to sustain their various actions. And it's a long and complicated process, I should admit.
Thank you, Belmont. I think we have one more question here.
Just to add real quick to that, if you don't mind, Fran. So
Oh, great.
I
Oh,
think-
thank you, James.
I think just to build on what Belmont was saying, one of the things that I've personally seen over the last
Wait,
few
James, hold
years-
on one sec. Let's make sure we can. Does this sound okay? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. So just to build off what Belmont said is, one of the observations that I've personally seen, and one of the purposes that we've intentionally tried to address within our partnership with WWF to answer that question is the long-term nature of our commitment, right? Because change within communities, coming along beside communities, helping make sure that you are finding a sustainable way for that community to continue to grow, to continue to develop, and continue to be able to feed their families, to make money, to make revenue. That's important, and that takes time. And so one of the commitments we made at HP was to make sure that we were doing this for the long term. And so that's part of that $80 million commitment to WWF, is that this would be a long-term commitment for the next decade. And that's tough as a company because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the next pandemic or the next, recession or something is going to look like. But we know that these communities need guaranteed support over time to be able to implement those changes that Belmont and Teru and others are trying to do in the field. And so I think that's another challenge that I would put to companies, is this cannot be a one time, I'm doing it this quarter or I'm doing it this year. It has to be something that you're driving as part of your principles and values as a company, that you're addressing deforestation, that you're addressing the impacts of climate and the impacts to the world around us and to these communities, and that you're coming in for that long-term support so that communities know that you're there with them for the long term to stand beside them and to go through this change. So.
Well said, James. Thank you so much. So important. So I think we had one more question here, and I think with that, we'll probably have to end our question and answer session.
Thank you. I'm Stefano Savi. I'm the director of the Global Platform for Sustainable Natural Rubber. I've been hearing a lot at this COP about the need for large investments and to save forests, and the opportunity that we have in the carbon markets to have these investments. And my question is, we've talked also about the role of companies in working in supply chains. And my question is, what should a company do today if they had, as they have, a big but limited budget? Where should they look at, and what's the proportion that they should invest in terms of working within the supply chain to make the supply chain cleaner, and outside the supply chain on these large projects that maybe have these systemic change opportunities? Thank you.
Great question. Would Ulf or James, you want to take that? And then maybe I can add a few thoughts as well.
I can have a go. It's a difficult question, of course, but I think the needs, as we have heard here today, are of course enormous, and there are big companies like HP and IKEA, but of course, I would say that small companies can also do a lot. It's not only about, let's say, the impacting figures. It's also about being the good example and inspiring others, and doing a small project in one village, making impact for the livelihoods of the people in one village in Lebanon or Indonesia or anywhere else is always a good start. All initiatives, all companies and all the projects were small in the beginning, right? So I don't think being small should limit you.
Yeah, I think
Thank
the
you.
part that I would add to Ulf's comment is it doesn't take big investments. It can be small choices every day. So whether it's the gentleman that asked the question, getting people to just request sustainably sourced rubber, getting people to request sustainably sourced paper, getting people as they work to print their next advertising, or if you're a clothing company, the hang tag that goes on your next pair of jeans, or, it could be anything all the way down to the advertising banner that you're going to put at a bus stop. You have a choice, right, in the way that you're spending your dollars, and thinking about sourcing responsible paper products in your printing, requiring that to be part of your sourcing dollars. you didn't change anything. You didn't have to give more. You didn't have to have a giant fund. You're just making your voice count and your dollars count and your day-to-day decisions count in protecting the forest. And so I would encourage that anyone can be a forest champion. Anyone can be a climate champion just with their day-to-day choices in the types of paper they use and the types of materials they source and the types of wood that they support and in the companies they support. Look for places where you think people are making a difference and go in and stand beside them and show that your voice counts as well.
Thanks to both of you. Great answers. I would just add that WWF's approach is really to work with companies first and foremost on their on what they control and influence. And so starting with supply chains is absolutely critical, and reducing emissions and removing deforestation and conversion and moving towards more responsibly sourced materials. Those are all first and foremost before we can go beyond supply chains. We want to see beyond supply chain work, but we have to see that first. Thank you. Yeah. So with that, I think we're going to show a quick video. This is another example of IKEA's work with communities and with WWF in Indonesia. And it's another example from another part of the world of working on the ground with communities. So with that, I think we'll roll the video. I'm so sorry. I kind of messed up. We would love to first thank our fabulous panelists. And really, it was such an honor to have all of you here with us representing two of the leaders truly in the private sector on forests. And then also two of our colleagues who are working in some of our most precious forest regions. So huge thanks to all of you for joining the panel today.
Thank you for having us, Fran.
Okay, now we roll the video. Thank you. Very good.
Orang Dayak sudah lama bertani menanam rotan. Rotan sangat sakral untuk orang Dayak dan juga dipakai untuk kebutuhan sehari-hari. Dan rotan itu dia menghasilkan banyak bahan. Dia punya kulit, dia punya tengah. Dan dia juga bisa digunakan dengan adanya seperti itu. Hubungan pohon dan rotan itu sangat erat. Rotan tidak bisa hidup tanpa adanya pohon. Sedangkan kami orang Dayak tidak bisa hidup lepas dari hutan. Kita sudah membentuk koperasi untuk bisa mengolah rotan secara berkelanjutan dan mencari pasar. Dibantu oleh WWF dan IKEA sehingga kita mendapatkan sertifikasi FSC, dan kami juga mendapat sertifikat tanah supaya tidak dialihfungsikan untuk hal-hal yang lain. Kalau kita tidak menjaga hutan, kita tidak menjaga orang hutan. Kita harus mempertahankan hutan supaya nanti anak cucu kita masih bisa menikmati dengan adanya hutan.
Thank you all so much and have a great afternoon.